In the darkest moments, when everything seems lost, a single act of kindness can change a life forever. What would you do if helping someone else meant risking everything you had left? That's exactly the choice Sarah Miller faced, down to her last 2,000, barely holding on to her struggling ranch, when she met a desperate man in need. She didn't know that giving away her final dollars would lead to an unexpected miracle the very next day. Welcome to Tales of Kindness, where we celebrate the power of compassion and generosity in every moment. If you enjoy stories like this, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep our community growing. Now let's dive into today's incredible story. Sarah Miller sat alone at her worn wooden kitchen table, staring at the bills scattered before her. 2,000, that was all she had left. She ran a hand through her sweat-dampened hair, exhaustion weighing heavy on her shoulders. Her small Texas ranch, once a place of joy and freedom, was now hanging by a thread. The drought had scorched her fields, leaving her without pasture for her animals. She had already sold 3 of her beloved horses, and the 5 remaining were growing weaker by the day. "This should cover 1 more feed delivery," she whispered, rubbing her temples. But then what? Her fingers brushed the old framed photograph on the table. Her father, standing proudly in front of the red barn he had built with his own hands. His dream had been passed down to her, but now it was slipping away. She exhaled shakily, pushing back from the table. She couldn't think about losing the ranch right now. Right now she just needed some air. Sarah drove her dusty pickup truck to the local diner, the only place in town where everyone knew each other's names. She couldn't afford a meal, but Maggie, the kind-hearted owner, often slipped her a muffin from yesterday's batch. The bell above the door jingled as Sarah stepped inside. The air smelled of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. "Morning, Sarah," Maggie called from behind the counter. "The usual?" "Just coffee today, thanks," Sarah said, forcing a small smile. As she settled onto a stool, the door jingled again. A man walked in, his shoulders slumped, his clothes worn. He wore a faded military cap, and there was a tiredness in his eyes that Sarah recognized immediately. "Coffee, black," he muttered, taking a seat a few spots down from her. Maggie poured him a cup and placed it in front of him. "How's the job search going, Tom?" He let out a dry chuckle. "Not great. Got turned down at the warehouse yesterday. Said my leg's a liability." Sarah's gaze flickered down. He was leaning slightly against the counter, taking weight off his right leg. "What about the apartment?" Maggie asked softly. Tom exhaled heavily. "We got the eviction notice yesterday. 3 days to come up with 2,000 or we're out." Sarah's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. "My wife's picking up extra shifts at the hospital, but with our baby sick..." He shook his head, his voice thick with emotion. "I never thought coming home would be harder than being over there." Sarah's heart clenched. Her own problems suddenly seemed smaller. "You served?" she asked quietly. Tom looked up, nodding. 2 tours in Iraq. 1 in Afghanistan. My cousin was in Afghanistan. 10th Mountain Division. Tom's expression softened. "Good unit." Sarah hesitated, then reached into her pocket. Her fingers closed. Around the envelope, holding her last 2,000. It was meant for hay. Without it, her horses would go hungry. Without it, her ranch might not survive. But looking at Tom, the desperation in his eyes, the weight of a man trying to keep his family afloat, she knew what she had to do. She placed the envelope on the counter between them. "I have $2,000 here," she said, her voice steady. "It was supposed to be for my horses, but your family needs it more." Tom's eyes widened. He looked from the envelope to Sarah, shaking his head. "I can't take your money. We don't even know each other." Sarah met his gaze. "You served our country. My dad always said we owe veterans more than we can ever repay. Take it. Keep your family in your home." Tom's hands trembled as he reached for the envelope. His voice cracked. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Sarah said softly. "Just promise me you'll get back on your feet." Tom swallowed hard. "I'll pay you back. Every penny. I swear it." "No rush," she smiled. "Take care of your family first." Tom stood, wincing as he put weight on his bad leg. He extended his hand. "Tom Wilson." "Sarah Miller," she replied, shaking his hand. "Where can I find you when I can pay you back?" Miller Ranch, about 10 miles east of town. Small place with a red barn. Tom nodded, carefully tucking the envelope into his jacket. I won't forget this. As he left, Maggie poured Sarah another coffee. That was your feed money, wasn't it? Sarah nodded, reality sinking in. The horses will be hungry by tomorrow night. What are you going to do? Sarah exhaled. Call around. See if anyone needs ranch work. Maybe someone has extra hay. That evening, as she measured out the last of her hay, she whispered to her horses, I'm going to figure this out. The next morning, Sarah woke to the sound of her horses whinnying. She pulled on her boots, ready to face another hard day. Then she heard it, the rumble of heavy vehicles. Stepping outside, she froze. A line of military trucks blocked her driveway. Soldiers in uniform stepped out, scanning the property. Sarah's heart pounded. What was going on? A tall man in a decorated uniform approached. Are you Sarah Miller? Yes, she said cautiously. I'm Colonel James Parker. We're looking for land to use for a training exercise. Your property was recommended. Sarah frowned. By who? The colonel glanced at his notepad. A Tom Wilson. Sarah's breath caught. Tom, the colonel continued. We're prepared to offer $5,000 for 3 days of use. Sarah's knees nearly buckled. That was more than enough to buy feed and cover her bills. As she showed them around, more trucks arrived. Soldiers began unloading supplies, including bales of hay. Dozens of them. Sarah turned to the colonel, eyes wide. How did you know I needed hay? The colonel smiled. Tom? A black SUV pulled in. The back door opened. Tom stepped out, but this time he stood taller in uniform, a quiet confidence in his eyes. I owe you an explanation, he said. Tom revealed he worked for a foundation that helps struggling veterans and rewards people who show kindness. Yesterday, when you gave me your last $2,000, you proved you were exactly the kind of person we look for, Tom explained. Sarah's voice was shaky. So, all of this? The foundation wants to lease 10 acres of your land to build a therapeutic riding program for veterans. Horses help in rehabilitation. We want you to run it. Sarah opened the contract in shock. The offer? Enough to save her ranch. She swallowed hard, then picked up her phone. This is James Mercer, a voice answered. Mr. Mercer, Sarah said, watching soldiers feed her horses. I'd like to accept your offer. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest blessings. Sarah's hands trembled as she set the phone down. She took a deep breath, staring at the contract on her lap. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was a chance to keep her father's dream alive and to help those who had served. Tom watched her carefully. You okay? Sarah nodded, still overwhelmed. I didn't expect any of this. Tom chuckled. Neither did I, but sometimes kindness comes full circle. The soldiers moved with quiet efficiency, setting up a temporary base for their training exercises. A few of them had already wandered toward the horses, gently stroking their noses and murmuring to them. Sarah noticed how the tension in their faces softened as they connected with the animals. Tom followed her gaze. Horses are good therapy. They don't judge. They just listen. Sarah smiled. My dad always said the same thing. Over the next few days, her ranch came to life in a way she hadn't seen in years. The soldiers trained on the far side of the property, but during breaks, many found their way to the barn. They mucked stalls, refilled water troughs, and even helped mend the old fence. One soldier, a quiet man named David, spent hours brushing a mare named Daisy. She reminds me of my horse back home, he admitted one afternoon. Had to sell him before my last deployment. Hardest thing I ever did. Sarah saw the way his fingers trembled slightly as he stroked Daisy's mane. Maybe one day you'll have another. He smiled a little more at ease than before. Maybe. As word spread, something incredible happened. Local ranchers, hearing about Sarah's new program, began donating hay, feed, and supplies. Some even offered to volunteer, knowing how much horses could help struggling veterans. The foundation provided funding to build a proper therapy center, complete with covered riding areas, shaded trails, and a small cabin for veterans needing time away. Sarah couldn't believe it. A few weeks ago she had nothing. Now she had purpose. One evening she stood on her porch watching the sunset. The campfires of the soldiers flickered in the pasture. The American flag fluttered gently above the barn, casting long shadows across the land. Tom walked up beside her. "You did a good thing, Sarah." She exhaled, feeling something she hadn't in months. Hope. "No," she said softly. Watching the men and women who had given so much for their country finally find peace. They did. If this story moved you, tap that like button and subscribe to Tales of Kindness. Sometimes a single act of generosity changes everything. Let us know in the comments. What's a moment of kindness that changed your life?